since we are talking about delivering the truth, I'm going to actually jump into this little section right here, which is called tactfully delivering the truth. When delivering criticism, it is important to do it with consideration and delicacy. If you punch someone in the face with criticism, they will become defensive and are unlikely to take the criticism on board. So a more indirect approach is needed. And again, that's what we just talked about with the other section, which is, oh, look, I'm just going to tell them what's up. You need to control your ego. That's going to work out great. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we tell the truth tactfully? Okay, here. First, care about your people. That's number one. Care about your people. If you truly care about them, they will know that and they will accept your criticism more easily. And this is something that I thought about talking with Flynn. And when I was the OIC of TradeEt, I was actually listening to Flynn at the muster. And he was talking about these savage debriefs that I would give. And I have some recorded. I'll play them for you sometime, bro. They're savage.
Yeah.
I was coming off the top ropes. I mean, I was coming off the top ropes. And as I'm sitting there listening to Flynn, because even at that time, like Flynn Cochran, not hard guy to read, right? Like he's not a guy that's like, hey, I'm not sure what he's thinking. Like, you're looking at Flynn, you're like, okay, I see where he's at. Leif, same thing, right? Leif is like, hey, what is that term? Wear your emotion on your sleeves, right? Leif is no stranger. Leif is not shy about saying, hey, I'm not exactly good. And imagine, what Leif's like now, but imagine when Leif was a platoon commander, right? Not exactly able to contain his emotions or hide his emotions. So as I'm listening to Flynn up there, talking about how I used to give these savage debriefs, and Sorelli, same thing, right? Like, how hard is it to tell when Sorelli's pissed off? It's like so easy, right? So when I'm sitting there listening to this, I'm thinking, man, I used to debrief these guys. Now, all those guys, every one of them, I gave them debriefs that were scornful, right? And I'm thinking to myself, why? How is it that on any of their faces, I never saw that look of like, screw you. You know what? Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Never. And it was the same with like, I had one guy that had that I could read that on, that I put through training. And he's the guy that in podcast number 5, I wrote a counseling letter for, which I very seldom did, and explained to him that he was not going to make it in the SEAL teams if he didn't become more humble and a bunch of other things. But that's a guy that I could see on his face. Like when I was debriefing him, he was pissed. But I debriefed hundreds of guys. And yet they would always be like, Roger, like that kind of, like they disappointed me. Like it wasn't, they were disappointed. That's the feeling I always got from Flynn was like, Roger. Or from Leif, like, Roger, that's what I always got back. Why is that? It's real easy. The reason is because all those guys knew. And the guys that I was putting through training knew. More than anything else in the world, I cared about them. And I knew that they were going overseas. And I knew that they were going into combat. And more than anything else, I wanted them to be able to accomplish the mission. And I wanted them and their guys to be safe and okay and come home. And they knew that. So when it comes to delivering truthful feedback, the number one thing is to care about your people. Number one. And then the next thing is take ownership of your problem, of the problem itself. Of course, extreme ownership should be the fundamental principle utilized by any leader. And there are tactics of employing extreme ownership when trying to critique a subordinate. Utilizing extreme ownership while providing feedback might sound like this. Here's some tactical maneuvers. Instead of saying, you failed to get the project done on time, use, what support or assets could I have given you so that we could have gotten the project done on time? Instead of saying, you failed to meet the mission objectives, try using, I don't think I did a good job of explaining the mission objective. Did you fully understand it? Instead of saying, your lack of professionalism caused this client to go to our competitor, Try saying, I think I allowed things to get too slack around here in terms of our professionalism. I think that's one of the reasons why we lost that client to one of our competitors. Now, there's guaranteed to be people listening to this right now that are thinking, what? That's weak. You should just tell them. How are they ever going to understand what you're talking about? And it goes back to this. When I attack them, they're not listening. That's all there is to it. When I attack them, they're not listening. Now, if you have a great relationship with you, if they know you care about them, if they know that you have their best interests, and that's why you're talking to them, yeah, you can go harder. And also, when you get people that you try indirect approaches on and it fails, well, then you escalate your directness, and over time until you're eventually like, listen, you failed this project, and this is not acceptable. And if it happens, like, yes, you get there. Totally. Absolutely. Don't start there. Don't start there. And by the way, also, this is in the book. It is important to take note that these are not simply techniques you are utilizing so your pesky subordinate falls into line. That is not the point. The point of all these statements and the whole point of taking ownership is that you must truly believe what you are saying. And you should, because the ownership statements in those examples are not simply lip service, they are true. If the leader follows up with the team members and makes sure that they have all the support and assets they needed to complete the job on time, then the job will get done on time. If a leader correctly explains the mission in simple, clear, concise manner and then ensures it is understood by the team will accomplish the mission. If a leader fails to emphasize the importance of professionalism, then it should come as no surprise that subordinates fail to act professionally. Yes, it's on you, the leader.